Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. So today I'm going to be making just a little bit of a shorter video showing off some things that we can do with the Tone.Players object. So in the last video I said something that I can't talk. Blah, 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 blah. Hi everyone, Mr. Barden here. So today I'm going to be making just a short little video going over the Tone.Players object again. So in the last video I said a few things that weren't 100% true. Basically saying how you can have all of your objects, but you have to route them all the same way because they come from the same multiplayer, or the Tone.Players. I have since learned some things that aren't quite, they make things a little bit better and easier to understand. So let's just roll that intro real quick and let's get right on to it. I'm going to do that one more time, Bean. But can you move? I'm doing stuff. I'm doing stuff. Go on. Go on, get. There we go. All right. Let's try that one more time. So I'll snap to iterate that. Hi everyone, Mr. Barden here again. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the Tone.Players object. So last time I said a few things that, while technically true, there's ways we can make work with our code a little bit better, a little more intuitively. So what I'm going to show you today is kind of an addendum to the last video where I introduced the Tone.Players object in order to load in multiple sounds and be able to pick out specific sounds and play them. So let's just roll the intro, get that out of the way real quick, and get right onto it. All right, so what I've got here on the screen, this starting code, I've already got Tone loaded in here. Basically, I've just got a link to some sound effects, so I can load up a few of them. I've got the multiplayer here. This is going to be where we store the Tone.Players object, and then some buttons. If I run the code, we see the buttons right there. They don't do anything at the moment. These are what we're going to use to trigger the sounds. So let's go ahead and make the players object. I'm calling it multiplayer just because it plays multiple sounds. It's going to be assigned a new Tone.Players. And then let's see. I have what I'm going to call beep. And that's going to be the base URL plus, then I have this written down over here, beep.wave. And then I'm going to have a separate one called down. We're going to call that one, it's going to be base URL plus, this is called high down.mp3. Okay, so if you're not sure what I just did right there, check out the previous video that came out right before this, and I will explain it all right there. Basically, I've just loaded in multiple sounds into the Tone.Players object. And we do all that in preload, so that way we can find our code before the sketch starts to run. So let's start doing stuff. Let's play some sounds. I've got these buttons here, and I'm going to set them up in order to make our sounds be able to play, but I want to be able to route them a little bit differently from each other, even though they're both in the same Tone.Players object here. You'll notice I did not include the to destination after this. That's going to be important for what I'm going to talk about right now. What I'm going to do is make two new variables. I'm going to call one beep and down. All right. Notice it doesn't have to be, but they are the same names as what I'm giving the sound files, just so I can, find them. So I'm going to go into my setup function, and I'm just going to say beep is going to be multiplayer.player beep, and down it's going to become multiplayer.player. We're going to look for down. All right, you may recognize this from when we were triggering the sounds of our objects. So basically, we're able to store this portion of that command, the one that's finding the specific sound, and we're able to, again, store that in a variable and call it back when we execute the play the sound command. This will become a little more apparent in just a second. So basically, we've loaded this up. Let me make some functions down here. Let me move this up a little bit on the screen so it's easier to see. Function and function. All right. So I'm going to do this function is just going to contain beep dot start right there, and down dot start. All right, so we've got that going up right there. You'll notice that at the moment it's not going to play anything. We haven't connected it to the destination yet. That's fine. That'll be actually what we do in just a little bit. But basically, we've said now beep.start, down.start, that's stored in these functions. So we can go in here and just say button one dot mouse pressed, and I'm going to call back play beep, and then button two dot mouse pressed, and I'm going to call back play down. There we go. So we'll be able to play back these sounds. And again, storing this information right here will help us make life just a little bit easier. Another thing we can do is go in and actually, for right now, I'm just going to add in the dot to destination just so we can hear the sound to destination. And I need the parentheses. That's what I forgot. There we go. So I'm going to play the sounds now. So you should hear some beeps and then a sound that descends in pitch. Oh, and it doesn't like me. Sketch 30, line 33. Why doesn't it like me? Alright, so it plays the get down one. You can hear that. Actually, no, we can't. Now you can hear it. There we go. Let's see, what have I messed up? Ah, I just forgot a 4 in the name. So now you can hear the beep and the get down sound. Again, just to reiterate, you always got to double check to make sure things are spelled correctly. Usually that'll be the problem whenever you get the buffer is not loaded or doesn't exist. It's just something was not spelled quite properly. Happens all the time. So now we can play these sounds. Cool. Let's route them somewhere and somewhere different. So this will be just a really, really brief intro into what my next video will be about, which will be a more in-depth explanation of routing audio and setting up audio effect chains. So again, this is just a real brief teaser of something to come. So if you don't quite get everything that's happening, that's okay. Just be sure to check out the next video. Let's see, this will be recorded on Saturday, so that next one will probably be recorded on Monday and be out in the next day or two after that. So you can expect to see something very beginning of March that goes way more in depth into audio effects in Tone. So to load in effects, we have to, again, like everything, make a variable to control it. I'm going to say, I'm going to make a reverb, and I'm also going to make a pitch shifter. Right, these are going to be just some basic ones I picked off the top of my head that Tone can do. When we're in preload, we can go in and say reverb is going to be a new Tone, capital T. And Tone has several reverbs. I'm going to use the JC reverb. And shift is going to become a new instance of Tone.pitch shift. All right. So we have that going right there. Shouldn't be anything too crazy. What I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to remove the dot to destination from here, and I'm gonna stick this on each of these. To destination. Dot to destination. Just stick them right there. What we can do, I'm gonna make this a little more apparent. I'll go into what all these values do in the next video, but basically I've just made the reverb be a lot more noticeable. And then the pitch shift, we just have to say what do we want to set the amount to. I'm gonna say I'll do it. I'll just say 5 for right now. So you'll know. Actually, no, I'll do it. I'll make it lower. I'll make it -5. Again, I'll go way more into detail about what all of that does and some better ways to manipulate these properties in the next video. Just know that I'm making things sound different right now. What we can do here is when we go and trigger the sounds, we can then say beep dot connect, and we can say I'll connect the beep to, if I could type, reverb, and I will connect this, see, down dot connect to, and I'll send that to the shift. That's what I called it, shift, yeah. So now we should hear these sounds sounding very differently from each other. Again, a way to think about this is we've loaded the sounds right here, and then we've saved each individual one in a variable right here. And then we are taking that and connecting it as if we're physically plugging it in one of them into the reverb and then playing it back, one of them into the pitch shifter and playing it back. So what we should hear, I'm going to play the beep sound. It should be a lot more reverberant and go on for a longer time. It's much more sound there. Now I'll do it one more time. Compared to before, if I was to just remove the reverb. But we actually won't hear it. So say dot. So instead, I'll just say dot. Just so we can hear the back and back to back. And that was it normally compared to the reverb one. I'm going to reconnect that. And then the shift, we can hear that it won't be reverby, but it'll sound lower than last time. So here we go. There's that. Compared to this one. Notice again, the only thing that changed was the pitch. And I'll put this back at shift. There we are. So that's great and all, but it could be better. So the one thing that is a little problematic here is that every time we are calling this sound, we're reconnecting these connections. We don't really need to. We can just set them once and be done with it. So we can actually set up some of these things a little earlier. We can say, just have down.start, but instead up in setup, you could say down.connect to shift. Move this line up here. Beep.connect to reverb. And so on and so forth right there. Should be pretty easy. All right, again, so we've now stored it and connected it all to the reverb. We can go from there. Let's go one step further, though, and let's, just so all of our connections are in the same spot, let's remove the to destination from where we make our effects and go down into setup. And let's just say reverb dot connect. We're going to say it's reverb dot to destination. You could use connect as well, but this works a little bit easier. So now, if we wanted to, it should still sound the very reverb effect. Actually, I'll make this just a little smaller, just because we already get the idea. And the shifted down. So now we've set that up. Now the reason I've done this is to avoid some problems a little down the line. So you can very easily, when you're making the reverb, say this equals a new reverb, connect the the shifter to the reverb to the destination. That's totally fine, and have a separate dot connect on every method or on every effect. There becomes a little bit of a problem if you ever have to remove an effect, add one in, or change the order of them. And that is it can break things because the computer won't know where to find where it's going. You could add some other effect that's not in the right spot and connected properly. It can be a little bit problematic. One thing to remember is that when the JavaScript and P5 execute the function, so again, preload happens right at the beginning before anything else, it's going to execute everything from top to bottom. Well, if we tried to make the reverb and connect it to the shift like this, we're going to have a problem, and it just has that because we're going from top to bottom. So when we run preload, we make reverb, we haven't got to the line where we make shift yet, so there's nothing to connect. Shift doesn't exist, and that becomes problematic. You see, it stops from working. So if things aren't in the right order, you run into problems. If you change the order around, you run into this problem where you may have an instance where, oh no, my object doesn't exist, but I made it. It exists right here. It doesn't work, but it should. It's usually an ordering problem. one way around that is to do exactly what I've shown you right here, and that is to make everything first and then set up all of your connections a little bit later. So again, we can kind of break this up. So in setup, I make the buttons and I set up the connections to all of the things I made beforehand. You could technically make some of this stuff in setup. I like doing it in preload. They both work the same. It just ensures everything's ready to go. If you do it in preload, there's no right or wrong way in that regard. But here, so just to look at it, we make all the buttons that trigger the playback. That's fine. That's the same. We say that beep is going to be specifically the beep sound here in the beep player of the multiplayer, and we're going to connect that to the reverb, and then just to keep everything next to each other, we're going to connect the sound down to the shift player, and then we're just connecting reverb and shift to the destination. You don't have to connect this to the destination. I could say, I could do it like this. Yeah. And say shift dot connect to reverb. So now if I play the get down sound, it'll be shifted and reverbed. So you have that there. So again, its shift is connected into reverb. Reverb is going to the destination. So again, to follow this pathway completely, you get the URL of the sound file loaded into multiplayer with a name. We say grab that sound file and send it to the reverb. Reverb sends it to destination. Down over here, we're going to grab that sound file, connect it to shift, connect shift to reverb, reverb to destination. So again, I'm going to set this back to destination. So basically, we have these sounds in the same player's object, but we can send them different places and have a different chain of effects for each of those. So again, this is just a really basic kind of overview, a little bit of a review. I'm not going to go any further right now into working with the effects. That's going to be the basis of the next video that I put out. Just know that you can affect these parameters and change how the effect sounds in real time, and you can make some very interesting effects doing that. And again, I've triggered these with button presses today. You're not really limited in ways that you can trigger these sounds. The only rule is never trigger them inside of the draw function. So again, if you set them, try to do a .start in draw, it's gonna be problematic. You can check out a previous video where I go through that very loud noise. It's not gonna work. You only want to trigger that once, and that's why we've set these up in separate functions. Speaking of separate functions, I'm going to wrap out the video with this. I've set this up in a way that you can essentially store all of this stuff inside of an object, but there's other ways you can do it by setting it all up in a custom function. And then you can just say, beep as a function, and it'll run the code right there. I like this way because it's just setting everything once and you're done, and it's I think a little more clear. But if enough people want to, I will make another video about how you can set this up using just functions and less of the kind of object storage and notation and things like that. So if that's something you want to see, go ahead and put that in the comments down below, and I will make another video about that at some point in the future. As always, I'll have all of this information in the description. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out via the comments. I'd love to see what people make with all of this stuff. So if you make something that's kind of cool and want to share it, feel free to share that as well. And I think that'll do it for this video. So everyone have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.